Right, you're good.
Great. I will share my screen and then Dave can do his thing. So whenever you're ready, Dave.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We are meeting tonight under extraordinary circumstances. Our community, along with communities around the country and the world, have been observing social distancing for health safety measures to slow the progress of COVID-19 pandemic for many weeks. To allow normal or near normal operations, the city government functions to continue, the governor of New York has declared a disaster emergency and has issued multiple executive orders, and the city of Rochester mayor has issued several local emergency orders, which together authorize the holding of this meeting, for this hearing virtually, subject to waivers of certain requirements in the New York State Open Meetings Law and the Rochester Zoning Code. In addition, at a prior meeting, we amended the Planning Commission rules and procedures to allow us to conduct this hearing as authorized by the governors and the mayor's emergency orders, and to waive other requirements to allow us to proceed with this hearing as I am now about to describe. Primarily, these waivers involve the requirement for in-person attendance by commission members, staff, and the public at this hearing. Emergency orders permit us to hold this hearing by teleconference with no in-person attendance, allow applicant presenters by teleconference, and require all public comments, both in favor and in opposition to the application, be submitted in writing, by mail, or by hand, or by hard copy, mailed directly to the zoning office, or deposited in the secure drop box located in the link entrance of the City Hall. These written public comments have been required, these written public comments were all required to be submitted by 5 p.m. on Friday, June 5th. Although the conduct of this hearing has been altered, there are some of our normal procedures, many of which will remain the same. All normal notification of this hearing included mail notice, publication, and posting of notice were followed. A staff report has been prepared for each application, and the report, along with the application and other pertinent documents, have been presented to the commission members and posted online for several days prior to tonight's meeting. All the normal timeframes for the applicant presentation and comments in favor and opposition to the application will remain the same. Most importantly, the commission will hear, review, and make decisions about all the applications with the same diligence and using the same standards required by the zoning code. Before we begin, I would like to explain the ground rules for the hearing. When the case is called, the applicant will be allowed 15 minutes to present their case to the commission. The applications were posted on the city website at least a week ago and were available to public for review. All applicants are advised to ensure that their applications were complete and include all information that they intend to present at this hearing tonight. The application is presented. The staff will be responsible to identify and show pages of the application that the applicant is addressing in the presentation. Following our normal procedure, the commission members may ask questions to the applicant about their application. After the applicant's presentation is completed, staff will read into the record public comments that were submitted by the comment that have been submitted by the comment deadline. First of all, those in support of the application, then those in opposition. These comments will be limited to 10 minutes if you're submitted by an authorized representative of an officially recognized neighborhood association, and 3 minutes for all other comments. If the reading of the submitted written comments exceeds the time limit, staff will summarize the comments to fit within the time frame. If multiple submissions repeat the same comments, staff will summarize those comments. Any public comment that were received in time to be posted online by the staff report will not be read into the hearing tonight. There will be no call-in comments. After all the comments have been read, and the applicant will have 5 minutes to offer any testimony in rebuttal. After the applicant's presentation is completed, staff will read into the record any public comments that were submitted by staff, report and posted on the city website. First, those in support of the application, then those in opposition. 10 minutes for neighborhood association and 3 minutes for all others. In regarding to the submitted written applications will exceed the 3-minute time frame. Staff will summarize the comments to fit the time frames. If multiple submissions were repeated, the same comments, staff will summarize those comments. There will be no call-in, and after the comments have been read, applicant will have 5 minutes to offer testimony in rebuttal. At the conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, the case will be closed. However, if board members determine that there is substantial new evidence has been presented by the applicant during the hearing, either during the original or rebuttal testimony, the case may be adjourned and held over for the board's next announced hearing date in order to give public an opportunity to review these comments of the new evidence. After completing all the hearing on the agenda tonight, the commission may elect to take a short break, which will be announced. After the hearing and the break, if any commission will then commence the deliberation and voting on all the applications with the exception of ones that may have been adjourned to another meeting date. Please also note that if your case is approved today, a written decision will be mailed to you within 15 business days. The decision will inform you of the next steps to complete the approval process. Before we have the first case, please note that we are all volunteers, and we would like each commissioner to confirm their presence for the purposes of a roll call and establishing a quorum for this hearing, and to introduce themselves and to mention the quadrant from which they live. And we'll do that now alphabetically.
Carrie Carroll, Southeast.
Red Flower, South.
Eugenio Marley, Northwest.
Richard Mauser, Southeast.
Milton Pichardo, Northeast.
Steve Rebholz, East District.
And David Watson, Southwest. May we have the first case, please?
Case number 1, file number E-44-19-20, applicant Aliran Fisher, Recycling Company, address 1465-1475 Hudson Avenue. The request is to continue a recycling center in an existing building as established by special permit E-34-18-19, and this is a special permit renewal. And I'd like to go on record that saying all present commissioners have visited this site.
Right, and we have Mr. Fisher.
Yes, and Lee Cuff. I'm the owner of the property and Ellie is the owner of the business.
Okay, what I'll do, I will swear both of you in. Is he going to be testifying as well?
Yes, we both will.
Okay, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. You may continue.
All right. We submitted some paperwork to you folks, letting you see the things that we had done to comply with what the requests were from the planning board before. We just wanted to go over with you those items. We built the 150 feet of 8-foot fence. We showed you pictures of that as well as rulers showing that it was 8 feet tall. We've had no issues with that. We also built the pipe fence in front of both the 1463-65 building and the 1475 building. We removed all of the unwanted parking spaces that were required, and we had the parking in front of the laundromat restriped so that it runs parallel to the building rather than on an angle. We removed all of the parking spots in front of the two buildings and along the 1463-65 building. We've had no incidents here with regard to any customers and issues with the place. We've had no problems with vermin. We've inspected the property I have on a weekly basis and have had no issues. We've complied with the trucks coming in at either 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning to get loaded, so that it did not interfere with the parking nor interfere with traffic on Hudson Avenue at any time. Interestingly, we have worked closely with Walmart because they closed down their collection centers with their machines and directed people to go across the street to us over here at Ellie's place. Also, we've had an enormous number of customers from Keeler Park and the surrounding apartments along there. So Ellie has been able to hire 3 additional people since he opened the doors, and business has been very consistent and they're doing very well. So I think we have complied with everything that the city of Rochester asked us to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if I could take over just for a second. My name's Ellie Fisher, owner of Rock Recycling Company. First of all, I want to say thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it, and giving me the opportunity to speak for you about this application. This last year went by pretty quick. I can tell you that, and it's been actually a blessing. I opened the second location. My first location is on 184 Smith Street, where we do approximately 30,000 bottles and cans a day. Within 1 year, I'm already at 15 to 20,000 bottles and cans here at Rock Recycling too. So how immensely we've attracted a big crowd has been short time in this one short year. I spent actually $0 on marketing, so it's all been word of mouth. So that just shows you how well and we treat our customers and how well we do here, that people are willing to come via word of mouth. I would love for people to, if they could come inside. I think that this is the cleanliest recycling facility in all of New York State. If somebody can verify, I know that that's true. I've been able to hire three new people from surrounding neighborhoods that are working here, which has actually been a blessing. I mean, they worked out perfectly, and amazingly so. Like Lee has been saying, they know all some of the surrounding neighbors in Keeler Park and in Seneca Manor, which we were trying to comply with last time we came here. I have used a monthly extermination for any bugs. I don't really allow people to bring any roaches or anything. I do stop everything right on in the beginning. There's no breaking, there's no manufacturing, so there's no loud noises, there's no noxious smells coming out of this building. Everything is removed once a week. I have 2 trucks now coming because of the volume. And everything's gone by 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, I'd like to say that we also added more security cameras to the property, which also looks towards Keeler Park and Seneca Manor, which we knew was going to protect that area.
As well as additional lighting as well. We increased the lighting in the parking lot.
Correct, yeah. We've taken every security measure as possible. I know that it's been a blessing to be actually considered an essential business during these times, but recycling is considered an essential business. And it sort of falls into this, as we mentioned before in the last application with the comprehensive plan of 34, that we are about recycling. We do offer entrepreneurship and jobs. I mean, we've hit everything that this comprehensive plan would like to hit in this 1 year. But yeah, once again, I just want to say thank you.
Do you have questions for us?
Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. I know in the original permit last year, they were concerned about kids going into the property. So adding that fence obviously have helped. They don't go around or anything like that.
I haven't seen any kids. I mean, I can't even see from my building, you can't even see the playground. I mean, that 8-foot fence literally covers the whole view. And I mean, kids are pretty small. I don't know how they'd be able to jump an 8-foot fence, and I haven't seen it.
We haven't seen children in the parking lot. The fence runs from the rear corner of the laundromat building to the corner of the lot and then turns along the back of the lot to the building that's directly behind us. So there's no way for anybody to see in. There's no way to see out from our property to the playground area at all. So people don't let their kids play in our parking lot, that's for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, I would, this is Eugenio. I would like to know, of your 3 new employees, how many are from the adjoining neighborhood?
I actually have 2 are from the journey right here, and one's, I mean, it's in Irondequoit. I know that I'm talking to the city, but he's right around the corner in Irondequoit. But I have 2 from the city itself and 1 right around the corner.
Okay.
So I would say 3, but 2 technically for the city's purposes, 2 in the city, 1 around the corner in Irondequoit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, any other questions for the applicant?
This is Carrie Carroll.
Yes, Carrie.
The neighborhood was very concerned last time around about vermin and the appearance and so on and so forth. So I wanted to commend you for the work that you've done in the last year. The space
Thank
looks beautiful. I mean, it's nicer than my house and it's a recycling parking lot. So
Thank you.
no offense to me, but do you have any additional plans to expand beyond the Smith Street location?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm actually trying to open up my 3rd location here. I wanted to get through this process and hopefully one actually fell out in the suburbs into my lap that I'm working with right now. And I'm actually talking to FLOM management around the Winton East Ave area. They have a couple properties that I'm actually talking to, and the old right there by Hahn, the Hahn Heating right in the North Winton Village. That's the next location that I've been looking at.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments, any other questions? Again, I would like to reinforce what Carrie had said, that I commend you on the job that you've done. And I think that you really put to rest all the concerns that the neighbors had last year when you came before us. And I think this is a model for, I think, businesses, and I commend you both.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
We've tried to be very diligent.
All right, in that case, Anna, do we have any comments that have come in for this case since the 5th?
Nope, there were no comments that were received after the publication of the staff report.
Okay, well, that being said, we will close this case and we will have the next case. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Should we need to stay on? Will you vote or will you just send us a letter with
We'll
your
do-
decision?
Oh,
Go ahead, Anna.
you're welcome to stay on if you want. So after we've heard the 2nd and 3rd cases, we'll have deliberations, and so you're welcome to stay on and listen to that. If not, I can always email you, and then you will be official decision letter will come to you in the mail within 15 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, so case number 2, this is a special permit. The file number is E-45-19-20. The applicant is David Chapius, DD's Night Out Incorporated, doing business as Roar. The address is 621 Culver Road, aka 593-625 Culver Road. The zoning district is M1, and the request is to establish outdoor seating accessory to the bar restaurant Roar. This is an action requiring City Planning Commission approval. And I'd like to go on record saying that all present commissioners have visited the site. Oh, looks like you're muted, Dave.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Okay, there you go. Yes, Dave, this is Dave Watson. I will swear you in. Is there anyone else that will be presenting tonight other than yourself?
Nope, just me.
Okay. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And you may continue.
We are just out in front on Culver Road. There is a concrete pad that's there. We didn't pour that pad. It is on private property. Howard Nielsen, the owner of the plaza, this location that we're in used to be part of Sticky Lips. It was the music hall that was open for a short period. I assume he used the front for the same purpose that we're going to use it for, but apparently no permits were ever granted for this. So we just want to place a few tables out there so that people can eat and drink out front. While we were under temporary for our liquor license, the state liquor authority gave us permission to use that space. Now that we've been reviewed and we have our permanent liquor license, they brought up some questions about it, which we didn't even realize that it wasn't permitted. So that's what put us into this process. And I guess, I mean, that's really it. We just want to put a few tables. The tables that I drew on there are spaced out considering the current situation we're in. So I don't, honestly, we don't want to junk the front up with a bunch of tables anyway. Just putting 3 is probably satisfactory for us for the future as well. We've already put out some planters and we're planning to do a few more just because even though we're not open, we still have planters out front just to kind of beautify the area a little bit. I guess that's really it.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? I guess I have a question for staff. With the addition potentially of the outdoor seating, would that fall into the same hours of operation that he's currently under? Do we have to special?
So, unlike indoor liquor use, outdoor, the state liquor authority will allow the locality to set the hours.
Okay.
So you know how we tell you, like when we're doing special permits for bars and restaurants, that we could impose conditions, but they're not going to apply to a liquor license facility indoors. But we can set hours out for the outdoor use, and the liquor authority allows that. Okay. In the event that they want to, limit any, something less than, 2:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, okay. That being said, Mr. Chapman, do you have an idea about the hours of operation that you'd like to have for the outdoor seating?
I mean, right now, obviously, we need to plan for the future. Sure. So, our operating hours are only Wednesday through Saturday. We're planning to add a brunch on Sunday at some point. Mm-hmm. Wednesday and Thursday, we're closed around midnight. Fridays, we do stay open till 2, and Saturdays, we stay open until 2. So I would like to be able to use it, for all hours. I think that being in an industrial area, we don't affect any neighbors. I was a big neighborhood leader in the city of Rochester before my husband and I moved out a few years ago. So I understand the impact that businesses have on neighborhoods, especially with noise and stuff like that. I know this isn't necessarily important to you, but I mean, we do dedicate staff to cleaning the front. Obviously, most people go out front in order to smoke. So we have a dispenser or a butt can thing out there for them to dispose of it properly. We empty that regularly. We keep the front very clean. And we don't have any neighbors across from us. It's another industrial building across from us. So I would like to be able to have it for our hours of operation, which could go until 2 a.m. We are not one of those places that stays open past 2. So it's not an all night. We're not, even though we can operate 24 hours in an industrial zone that we're in, that's not our intention. Obviously liquor is what liquor is where we make our money. And when I can't serve liquor anymore, it's time to give bottles of water and have people go home.
Okay, and I guess the other question that I have is that would there be a problem if we were to not allow outdoor music?
No, that's not a problem for us. We don't have any outdoor music now. We were planning to put a couple of small speakers, which would be the same as what Sticky Soul next door has outside playing, 1950s music all the time. So we would like to add a couple of small speakers outside, but it's nothing that would be heard from far off of the property, certainly.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yes, I've got a few.
Yes, Rich.
Dave, from the looks of it, the drawing you had doesn't really indicate your property line, but I think you're basically your platform comes all the way out to the edge of your property, and after that it's a public sidewalk, right?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
Okay.
I don't own the property, I just lease it, but yes.
Okay. And I just wonder if there's are there any issues with having alcohol on your property is fine, but if they go into the public sidewalk, is there any issues there, Tom?
Well, I can answer that if you don't mind.
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak to the legality of it, but we, when we applied for our liquor license, we included that space. They found that space to be acceptable during our temporary licensing. We do not allow liquor off of a patio. We actually, if you saw what it looked like before we came in here in November, we extended the railings to make the openings much smaller to the space. And that's what the liquor authority requested that we do. And we always have a staff person outside to ensure that no one is going into the sidewalk with any drink.
Okay. Well, I think adding the planters is pretty helpful because it's kind of a pretty barren stretch of Culver Road there. So I think the planters will help dress it up.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We don't want to be a detriment to the neighborhood. So.
Okay. That's all.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, hearing none. Anna, were there any other comments that come in?
Sorry,
Carrie?
David, it's Carrie Carroll. I was
Go
trying to
ahead,
unmute myself and the computer won and
Problem. I
round
understand.
2. I'm 1-0 today. Mr. Chappius, would you say that adding this additional outdoor space would be financially beneficial with, spacing as it needs to be? I mean, I know it's a struggle for all restaurants and bars and so on and so forth right now, and hopefully we'll all be back to drinking as much as possible soon. I mean, speaking for myself. But do you think that it will have a significant impact to be able to have that additional space outside?
Yes, I absolutely do, particularly now. So we have a back parking lot, which we've gone through a special, through the mayor's orders to get permission to set up some tables out back. And we are going to do that temporarily, but long-term, that's not realistic for us because our business is Culver facing, not the back parking lot. So, and I mean, as much as I despise cigarette smoke, there's a number of people that smoke, and it's just doesn't, we made a shelf on the inside so that if you don't want to bring your drink out, you can set your drink on a shelf. But then we run into issues of like whose drink is whose, and oh, someone took my drink, and we're not responsible for that. So that becomes a problem. So yes, I mean, several people like to have a cigarette with their beer, so that's kind of required for us. We're hoping to not have smoking at the tables. We're hoping to use the north side of our entrance right by the ramp there and encourage any smoking to be there as opposed to, so that some people can sit outside and enjoy fresh air, which is what we're all trying to do right now. So yes, I think that long-term for our business and for the sale of food, which we're pretty proud of, we really need to be able to provide some outdoor seating.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Anna, any additional comments that may have come in since the 5th?
No, there were no public comments received after the 5th.
Okay, so that being said, we will close this case and we'll have the next case. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a site plan review referral. This is case number 3. The file number is SP-17-19-20. The applicant is Wadsworth Square Neighborhood Association, Monroe Avenue Merchants Association, Monroe Village Task Force, Jack A. Darcy, Mark Cuppolo Rocco et al. The address is 95-121 Howell Street, aka 150 Monroe Avenue. The zoning district is CCDB, Center City Based District. This request is to review a referral of the decision of the Manager of Zoning dated March 20, 2020 on a site plan review application regarding the construction of a 4-story, approximately 64,985 square foot mixed-use building with 7,252 square feet of first floor commercial space, classrooms and practice space for Jeeva Theater, 56 dwelling units on floors 1 through 4, and 16 below grade parking spaces. I'd like to go on record that 6 of the 7 commissioners have visited this site. The one who didn't is Steve Rebholz, who will be recusing himself from this case.
Okay, in that case, how will we notify Steve when we're ready to deliberate? Because he might have to sit through case 3.
Steve, would it be, oh, go on, Joe.
I said he can watch it on YouTube. And I can also, I can send him a text message.
Okay, that'd be great. Again, you know, because we're not sure how long we'll take, but I want him to make sure that he's in the deliberation for cases 1 and 2. Okay, that being squared away, are the applicants available?
We just need to unmute Mr. Darcy.
I'm unmuted, I think.
Okay, and Mr. Darcy, will there be anybody else testifying with you this evening?
Just me.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, just me.
Oh, okay. In that case, let me swear you in. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, and you may begin, sir.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I listened to the pre-hearing discussion, and there is a controversial point, and that is in regard to the CCD commercials, or I'm sorry, the CCD zoning, and this has to do with the parking requirement. And I have had consultation with the Zaglan Group, which are environmental attorneys, and they said that there's 2 factors, if I can show my hands. One is New York state law, environmental law, which trumps the city zoning code. And I'm going to show in this discussion how this is in violation of New York state law and how it also is in violation of city zoning code. So I'll begin. We have a successful, vibrant neighborhood here at Wadsworth Square. We are a key gateway into the city by the Strong Museum. We support development, but not at any cost. We are stressed because of parking. The Monroe Avenue parking study commissioned by the city shows a severe stress here. This project, as proposed, will make it much worse. It's short about 60 parking places of what would be required in most districts. So you say if it's in the CCD, that means no parking is required. No, it's not required by zoning, but if it has a significant environmental impact on the surrounding area, New York state law takes precedent. I will explain. We're having some discussions with key players and asking you to table this so that the neighborhood, the city, and Pastone have a chance to resolve this issue of parking for good planning in the city of Rochester. Key players are willing to try to resolve this. The Strong Museum, us, the city of Rochester, Mayor Warren, we all want to see this resolved. Just to be clear, we all recognize the need for affordable housing, and we all support Jeeva. We want to see this project built, but not with a site plan that's illegal, and we want a plan that works for the neighborhood, not against it. Please don't let this bulldoze over us. Our theme here is developers and neighborhoods working together. I also asked you to consider the letters that came in that there were a group of them from Joe Morelli and Joe Robach, etc. What's really in support of Pasco, but what's really interesting is they were all written before the site plan was ever filed. They're just general support concept letters. They have nothing to do with the site plan and are irrelevant. Another group of the letters came from business associates of Pastone, Marathon Engineering, Home Leasing. They all have a business relationship. I believe those should be disregarded. Whereas there are 3 neighborhood associations and about 60 residents and businesses who sent in letters of opposition. Would you please bring up page 189? And 189. You went past it. 189. Okay. Is there a way to get this turned so people can see it? Okay. Show the parcel here that is under consideration. It's parcel number 7, where the 7 is. Can you point to that, please? Yes. Okay. The big deal here is this. Right across the street is the Strong Museum, where number 1 is. Our neighborhood is right over here at number 4. Here's 7. Our neighborhood is number 4. All right. We have a beautiful historic residential and business neighborhood here. The massive development that has occurred in the Interloop fill-in, hotels, residential, apartments, and now a 4-story building on 7 without adequate parking flows in our direction. Our streets are already stressed. We're very concerned about what's happening. We're right on the edge of this whole thing. All right, take that off the screen, please.
Where would you like me to go, Jack?
Nowhere, just, I'm focusing on something else. Okay, no, not there.
You can keep going and I'll go to the first page of your staff report while you speak.
New York state law says that the approval is predicated on a seeker report submitted by PASTA. All site plan denial criteria are based on the acceptance of that seeker. Our zoning code, as I mentioned, says it's CCD, but seeker doesn't say if it complies with the zoning, you must approve it. Here's what the law says. If the proposed project may, not must, or probably, or possibly, if it may have at least one significant adverse impact, then a positive declaration must be issued and the applicant must prepare an environmental impact statement. They didn't do that. This may have a lot of impact on us. No one can doubt that. It depends on what happens with all of those cars. We cite the statute in our appeal if you want to see specifically what it is. It's a New York state law. This environmental impact statement must be prepared, and it was not. They're proposing a 56 apartment building with 7,200 square feet of commercial and only 16 parking spaces. One of the criteria that the code says for environmental impact, is there a substantial change in use? Yeah, it's a vacant lot. So 56 apartments is pretty substantial. Another one is, will the development encourage a lot more people to visit the site? Yes. You see maybe one person a day over there today. With this, with 56 apartments, Jeeva holding classes and rehearsals, and there's going to be a lot of people coming in. So there automatically should have been an environmental impact study and statement made. It was waived, and a short form environmental assessment form was filed, which was improper. And it says if there's 2 or more actions, and these are 2 or more, then they should have filed the statement. In addition to site plan being illegal, the city cites specific denial criteria in Chapter 120 and 191, Section 191. There's 2 of these that apply here, subsection G and subsection R, and I hope you cite those when you have your findings. Here's what they say. Please bring up page 39. We went past 39.
Did you say 49 or 39?
39. I hope you give me a few more minutes.
Jack, this is Tom Worth from the Law Department.
Yeah.
The Planning Commission's job is not to decide secret status and not to decide what a New York State environmental law does. They are to decide whether the project hits any of the 18 criteria of that would justify denying the application. So I suggest you focus on that so that you don't.
That's what I just said I'm going to do. When I'm talking about city zoning code, subsection G and R. G says the site plan must be denied if it unnecessarily and in specific particulars is injurious and or detrimental to the use of the surrounding property. Bingo. It's injurious and detrimental to our neighborhood. We're surrounding properties, and this is in page 39.
My apologies.
See, I could have brought these in, but I was told I had to use the ones that you have.
This is page 39 I have up.
Yeah.
You want?
Can you rotate it, please?
Yes, sure thing. I'll keep going.
Take a look at it. Under G, one of the criteria is block coverage. 25% is the maximum allowed. If you look at this building, can you show your pointer? The building takes up basically the whole parcel. So this isn't 25% coverage. This is 90% coverage. This should not have been allowed without a zoning variance. And why is this important? First, it's illegal, but secondly, it's important because there's no room for parking. If they built the site, if they had the lot coverage that they're supposed to have, they would have had room to put in more parking. So that's a really relevant point. The next point I want to make is part of this is transparency. If you look at the frontage along Savanna Street, point to Savanna Street, please. Okay. Now, in the staff report, it says 40 foot of it is exposed. If you're going down Savanna Street, look in there. You look through the parking lot, show the parking lot of Sherwin-Williams Paint. You look through it. You look at the whole side of the building. Now, Instead of having 30% transparency, they have like 20%. So they're 33% off. The code allows an administrative waiver for up to 10%. So they exceeded their authority. You're giving an administrative waiver. So who cares? Well, we care, because one of the key things from the neighborhood was if you go up Savanna Street, show up Savanna Street headed north, you go right into the Strong Museum. It's a major gateway, and this is not the back where designed just as a service alley like the staff report says. This is a major artery feeding into the Strong Museum. There should be more transparency. So there's two things in the code that are in violation. Moving on. Variances should have been required, and they weren't. If you allow this, you're allowing something very detrimental to our neighborhood in terms of violations and the parking stress and impact it's going to have on us. Would you bring us back to 189 again, please?
Yes. You can keep talking, Jack. I'll catch up.
Oh, I got to show you on the map.
Is this the one? No.
Section R, that is one of the denial criteria, says the city code also states the site plan should be denied if in the CCD the proposed site plan is contrary to or fails to meet the principal objectives of the city center master plan. One of those principles and objectives is to create and maintain a series of identifiable districts that retain their unique history, thematic, functional design characteristics. Again, point to 4. We have a historic neighborhood right next to this thing. If you allow this without adequate parking, you are environmentally impacting that surrounding area, and we will lose business occupancy, residential occupancy. So there is, under Section R, criteria for denial, a reason for this to be denied. Now, again, we're not looking for denial. We're looking for tabling this, where Pastone will sit down with us in the city to try to resolve this. There's some possible solutions. Mary Lupian from City Council has offered to mediate a discussion on this. She invited us, she invited Pastone. Pastone refused to attend. They said because they didn't want to interfere with the appeal process. Our attorney says people all the time who have opposing viewpoints get together and try to solve them. That's what we want to do. We all want to sit down at this table. Steve Dubnik at the Strong Museum, if you look at right where the Strong Museum is, number 1, they just put up a huge parking garage. I believe it's it's part of number 1. And he has room in there to accommodate some Pastone people. He's told them that, but yet there's no agreement in place. They say, well, because we don't have financing. I say that kicks in for 2 reasons. One is, if they don't have financing, you can table this. We're losing nothing to sit down and talk it through, and you can be heroes and support the neighborhood as well as work with Pastone. The other thing is that Steve Dubnik says he's willing to lease some spaces or try to work out an arrangement. Right where at the end of number 4, you'll see, can you point between 4 and 6, right at the end of 4? Yeah, right there is a Wodsworth Square parking lot. That's city owned. It's gated. Cars can't get in there. So we've been talking to the mayor and the city about opening that lot, but they haven't done it yet. We want this table until we all can sit down and work for a solution that's a win-win for Pastone, the city, and the neighborhood. We think this is possible to do, and we're asking you to do one of two things. Either approve it with conditions that Passstone get 20 parking spaces from the Strong Museum and 20 from the city and the parking lot. Passstone submitted a parking plan, but all of it was maybe. The city said, maybe we will. Strong said, if you pay, we will. We don't want that. We want to know that there's parking there, and we want it either conditioned on contractually getting that parking, or table it, let all the parties get together, sit down, and work this out. The Planning Commission is in a unique position to do this, and we hope that they will. I have a side question, if I can ask it. Can I ask a question?
After your presentation, we'll do questions and answers.
Okay. All right. So that is basically it. Again, we support Passstone. We support Jeeva. We all want to be able to hug with this and work together, developers and neighborhoods working together. And we ask you, the good planning in the city of Rochester, to make that possible. Table us or pass it with conditions for parking because of the environmental impact. Sections G and R under the city's zoning.
All right, anything else, Jack?
That's it.
All right.
Dave,
yeah.
I have a little announcement for you all. We do have representatives of the developer on the call, should there be any questions specifically pertaining to their area of expertise.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I didn't know they were allowed to testify. I thought all comments were in writing, except for my presentation, because I didn't bring anybody to answer questions.
In the past, Jack, this is Tom Worth from the Law Department. In the past, we have allowed the developer to even have an extra say. So the developer is just on if there are factual questions about the layout of the development that are not apparent in the record.
Okay, thank you, Tom. At this time, is there any questions for the applicant?
That's me, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Darcy?
I have a question.
Yes, Richard.
Mr. Darcy.
Yes.
Is there a, I think you put together the analysis of Passstone parking plan.
Yes.
Comparing it with Point and a few other places.
Yes.
Is there a number of spaces in your mind that would be where the problem would go away? Would it have to be one for every unit or
less?
Less. Would it be 50%, 75%, I wonder?
Here's roughly 50%, but there's 7,200 square feet of commercial space, which is also requiring parking. And I want the commission to bear this in mind. Jeeva has a long-term lease, but if they lose funding or don't need the space, that property is in a CCD, and a nightclub, a bar, anything can move in there. So it's important to have the parking available just beyond what they might want. Yes, I'm looking at reduced parking because they do have some people with special needs. They were wrong when they compared it to East House across from Monroe High School, because there, if you look at the description, a large percentage of those people that are there are disabled or have severe limitations. That's not true. There's a small component in this project, so to compare, it's apples and oranges. They need more parking.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have a question, but it's for the developers. And I'll ask the question, they can find out who may want to answer. I guess my question is, I know the Sherman Williams building is privately owned. Was there ever a consideration of buying that property and extending their footprint on that total property?
Mr. Watson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And you are?
I am Andrea Miller.
Yes, Andrea.
And I'm the real
We'd
estate
have to
developer.
swear.
Yep.
Let me swear you in, Andrea.
Okay.
Okay, here. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes. So that property was, I believe, sold about 1.5 years ago, and it's currently owned by a doctor. And the price, it was listed at $1.9 million, and we could not afford to bring that into the project. And it actually sold for $1.5 million, that parcel, because it is a income producing parcel with the Sherwin-Williams.
Ah, okay.
So believe me, we had some grand ideas for Jeeva, but it was the price tag that was difficult for us to incorporate to make it feasible for us.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. I guess my concern was that, part of the issue was looking at the space and the size, and that would have been an ideal place to get additional space. But again, I know that businesses and developers have limits that they can meet or not exceed in order to make a project come to fruition. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or for?
Yeah, David, I have a question that before Pat Stone, I don't know who would be appropriate if Marathon is on or the architects are on. But the question I have is obviously the parking they can provide has to be under the building if it's on site. And I understand the floor plan arrangement where you've got the Jeeva space at grade and you need the extra height in those spaces for that purpose, whereas you don't need that kind of height in residential. So I can see how it works. I just question why the parking that is there in the basement wasn't ramped down to allow parking underneath the Jeeva part. Why, is that something that couldn't be done, that they couldn't accommodate more on site like that? Or is it just too costly, or,
David, this is Andrea, and I'm going to pass this on to Dirk Schneider, our architect, and then if he could pass it on to Matt Tomlinson, our civil engineer.
Okay, what I'll do, I will swear both of them in, if they can hear me. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So we looked at how we could fit every other needs on the building site, and we also know where bedrock is sitting in that area. And between us and Matt with Marathon, we looked at all the options and the steepness of a ramp, and what is safe to maneuver, knowing that you will end up in Savanna Street if you come up. We had a few options, and that was really, we couldn't get any deeper to come out without cars bottoming out or not being able to get head clearance on the to get into the parking garage. So Matt can talk a little bit more about all the exercises I made him go through, and then also with home leasing construction, doing the estimates, what it would take to use explosive and get bedrock out.
All right, my question is taking as a given that the entrance ramp into the garage would not change at all as proposed, but that the parking under the garage that's shown could be on a ramp, like most parking garages in the city. You park on the ramp portions too, that could allow you to get down underneath the Jeeva space to put more parking on site.
Correct.
Why was that not a possibility to get to 50% parking?
Because we wanted to have at the sidewalk level, we wanted to make sure that we have as many residential units there and not walking for the first 60% of the building past a parking garage, and then have the residence almost being a full floor about 10, 11 feet up above grade. Right now, they're about 5.5 feet above grade, more of a piano nobile, instead of being right at the entrance, completely removed, and pedestrians, their view shed is a parking garage. So really we're concerned about the pedestrian experience.
And Richard, this is Matt Tomlinson. Just to answer your question, I think specifically about getting underneath Jeeva, as Dirk mentioned, there's 5 to 6 feet difference between the first floor for residential and then the first floor for Jeeva, which is a flush access point to the street, which is in conjunction with citywide design guidelines. So in order to make up that 5 or 6 feet and provide the clearance or headroom in order to do that, the length of the ramp required to slope that down far enough in order to make that happen is not present within the building. The building is a decent width, being the whole width of that block as it fronts on Howell Street, but the slope that would be necessary for it would be too steep to facilitate that parking.
What is too steep?
It would be up, so the typical rule of thumb is approximately a 4% slope is the maximum that you want to go. So that's every 20 feet you drop a foot. So we would have to go down over a length of 100 feet in order to accomplish that 5 feet in difference.
Okay, I've heard 6% in parking garages have been done.
You can go that steep, but what ends up happening is anything over 4% is enough for gravity to overcome a hinge on a car door, where if you would let go of it, it swings open and slams. So again, you can go steeper. Rule of thumb is 4%, but even at 6%, you're talking about 75 to 80 feet being required to make up that 5 feet in headroom.
Yeah,
which is the width of, which is the width of 6 or 7 parking spaces wide at a 9-foot width. So when you talk about we only have room for 16 or 17 spaces in the basement already, there just isn't, we run out of room extremely quickly underneath that building. And as Dirk said, we looked at many different options. We are limited by the depths and the bedrock and the other site constraints of the parcel.
How far down is bedrock?
It varies through there. Dirk, do you know that off the top of your head?
No, but I know even where the elevator is, we need to be a little bit harsher with our removal of the bedrock that's in place. I think we're maybe within 12 inches. We're not that far off, right in that area.
From the lower level.
Yes.
So you're
correct.
talking about below your pit below the parking garage level.
Correct. So the parking garage floor is another about 12 inches with our geotech. So we want to give ourselves some room so we can level, put gravel under it and get the concrete in level, and we don't have to scrape too much of the bedrock out.
So I just pulled it up. Bedrock varies between 10 and 15 feet throughout the project site.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Not the applicant, I'm sorry, for the project managers. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Anna?
Yes.
Do we have any other comments that have come in since the 5th?
Well, I would actually like to jump in.
Yes,
and
I'm sorry. Jill?
So I am Jill Wiedrich, and I lead the amazing zoning team. And so I'm presenting you comments that were also put forth in the application. So I will be reading them. If you do have any questions about them, I of course can take questions. So in response to the CPC referral submitted by the applicants, the zoning office offers the following information related to the points laid out in the application. So how I structured this is the applicants had asked several questions and answered them. I did the same. So how was seeker conducted? After receipt of a full project description and drawings, providing an opportunity for review and comparison with the seeker that had previously been completed for projects proposed for the former interloop parcels, it was determined that this proposal was an unlisted action and required a new seeker review beyond what had been previously completed. In accordance with state regulations for proposals that do not fit into the Type 1 list or the Type 2 list and are determined to be unlisted actions, a short form seeker environmental assessment form, an EAF, was used. Part 1 of the EAF was completed by the applicant on January 7th, 2020. Our office then completed parts 2 and 3, and these again are in the application. No questions in part 2 were put in the moderate to large impact may occur category. Part 3 was utilized to explain why particular elements would not result in significant adverse environmental impact. The following was detailed. Environmental remediation sites. The Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State DEC, EAF mapper application indicates the project site as being near a remediation site. However, the sites referenced are the Speedy Cleaners, Court Street site, which is over 1,500 feet from the proposed site, and the former Hall Welter site at 38th through 46 Mount Hope Avenue, which is approximately 1,700 feet away from the proposed site. These remediation sites are too far away to have a significant adverse impact on the project. Historic resources. The EAF mapper indicates the project site as being within 1 block of the National Register eligible or listed historic sites. 4 National Register eligible sites are located across Monroe Avenue to the south and Savanna Street to the east. This project will not have a significant adverse impact on the National Register eligible properties. None of the properties are adjacent to or directly across the street from the project site. The project will contribute to reestablishing the built neighborhood environment that existed prior to the construction of the Inner Loop Expressway, approximately 60 years ago. While the new building is taller than the eligible buildings, it will not be so big as to dominate the area from a massing standpoint. Although the building has a modern design, preservationists often recommend that new construction contrast with historic buildings to highlight the existing historic construction rather than trying to unsuccessfully emulate an architectural style from a different time period. Archaeological resources. The EAF mapper indicates a site as being near a potential and unspecified archaeological site. However, the construction of the project would not disturb any intact archaeological resource because the site has been previously and repeatedly disturbed at least as far back as 1888 and was previously paved over to extend Howell Street when the Inner Loop was built. The site was more recently excavated as part of the Inner Loop Transformation Project. Parking. Several residents in the area along the Wodsworth Square Neighborhood Association and the Monroe Ave Merchants Association voiced concerns with the proposal, alleging that there would be insufficient parking to satisfy the project's demands. At the request of the Wodsworth Square Neighborhood Association, the applicant has prepared a parking plan. The plan estimates the project will create a demand for 32 spaces and concludes that the parking demand will be satisfied by parking spaces to be placed on the project site, as well as by parking facilities located nearby. There are no minimum off-street parking requirements in any of the Center City zoning districts, including the Center City Base District, that encompasses the project site and the surrounding area. The city has long called for doing away with mandatory minimum parking space requirements for development in the dense, walkable, transit-served urban core of the region through documents such as the previous Center City Master Plan and the Rochester 2034 Comprehensive Plan, and as written into the city's zoning code. There have been no minimum code requirements for parking in downtown Rochester since 1975. Although no on-site parking spaces are required, the applicant has elected to incorporate 16 below-grade parking spaces into the project. In addition, on-street parking is available on Monroe Avenue, Howell Street, and a portion of Savanna Street. Furthermore, the applicant has taken neighborhood concerns into consideration and identified the additional demand for parking and potential solutions and created a parking plan. The parking plan focuses on 2 main topics: low demand. The applicant's plan indicates that residents of affordable housing developments have lower parking needs than market rate housing and offers 4 similar projects in the area as examples of how the parking demand of affordable housing projects is lower than the conventional standards. The plan also highlights the physical location of this project, which is within a dense, walkable urban neighborhood adjacent to downtown with access to public transit. The applicant asserts that this would be an excellent location for residents who do not have a car and has indicated that they would market the apartments in that way. When considering the portion of the project occupied by Jeeva, the plan notes that the project site is only a 6-minute walk from Jeeva Theater and that 75% of the programming will be for young adults, most of whom will be dropped off or arrive by bus. Those driving will be directed to the Washington Square Garage, which is located nearby between the Jeeva Theater and the project site. Supplemental parking spaces. The applicant has contacted the Strong Museum of Play and will negotiate with the museum to lease dedicated parking spaces in their new parking garage across the street, likely 5 to 10 spaces. Even without this agreement in place, visitors would be able to pay the hourly rate to use the parking garage during certain times of the day. In addition to available garage parking, the applicant has contacted the city to determine if leasing spaces in the Wodsworth Square surface lot is an option, which is, of course, a short distance down Marshall Street. The director of parking has indicated that spaces could be leased in the lot as long as they were available. Based on the proposed parking on site, so 16 spaces, the available on-street parking, the availability of 2 parking areas nearby, it is concluded that the project's parking demands will not create a significant adverse impact on the community or the existing transportation network. This conclusion applies even if the applicant is not able to obtain special dedicated supplemental parking spaces at the Strong Museum Garage and or Wadsworth Square. Pursuant to Chapter 48 of the Rochester City Code and the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, a negative determination was issued on March 18th, 2020. So was the city code violated? The first item that I'll tackle is parking. As described above, there are no minimum off-street parking requirements in any of the Center City districts, including the Center City Base District that encompasses the project site and the surrounding area. Design criteria. The zoning code dictates that those projects proposed for CCD that do not meet the design criteria must go through the site plan review process. This process is a means to evaluate proposed deviations from the CCD design criteria to determine whether or not they conflict with the principles, purposes, objectives, and overall intended design character of the district. Although there were deviations from the code's design criteria, a variance is not required because uniform compliance with the CCD design regulations is not mandatory. Compliance is only necessary to secure approval without additional design review. Applications not meeting the design criteria require the site plan review process that was conducted in this case. Site plan review authority is given to the manager of zoning to review and approve with conditions, or deny applications. Our office in its evaluation of the project determined that it was acceptable to waive each of these items and provided a rationale for each. Each rationale is laid out in the site plan finding and is summarized. The subject property is in the Center City District base. The proposed use of the building, mixed use commercial and residential, is permitted as of right. The code analysis identified a number of minor deviations from the CCDB design criteria. The application requires no deviations under the zoning code's major category. The design was found to comply with all other applicable requirements. So the first one that was waived was the maximum building length of 25% of block length and a maximum building depth of 50% of the block depth. The site was created as a single parcel, Site 7, of the Inner Loop Transformation Project and includes land south of Howell Street between Monroe Avenue and Savanna Street. In order to construct one building to fully utilize the irregularly shaped parcel, the proposed building must exceed the 25% maximum building width to block width ratio. The only alternative would be to construct 4 separate buildings. This block is triangular, which makes determining compliance with the depth requirements somewhat arbitrary. However, when measured at a 90-degree angle from Howell Street, the building will be in compliance with this requirement over most of the block. If measured from Savanna Street or Monroe Avenue, the building depth exceeds 50% of the block depth. After the city solicited proposals for the use of this site from a number of developers, the applicant's proposal to construct a single building was determined by the city to be the highest and best use of the property, which justifies this waiver. The second waiver is the building is to maintain the alignment of horizontal elements of adjacent existing buildings. This again is a minor deviation to be waived. The only adjacent existing building is the nondescript one-story building located at 158 through 162 Monroe Avenue, currently occupied by the Sherwin-Williams paint store. The adjacent building does not provide significant horizontal elements that need to be matched. The third minor deviation to be waived sets a maximum length of a facade plane of 50 feet with the requirement that a facade plane change of at least 2 feet in depth must be provided where a facade exceeds 50 feet in length. The east and west facades exceed the 50-foot width by approximately 9 foot each. In addition, they both curve to meet the north facade, making the discernible width smaller. As noted previously, the north facade is much longer, over 500 feet long. This requirement would result in at least 10 plane changes, which would be inappropriate for the architectural style of the building. This requirement is intended to break up long monolithic masses, even to create the illusion of separate buildings. While this may be the best approach for an infill site in a historic context, the inner loop parcels are blank slates with little context. The design proposal does provide for a varied vertical fenestration that counteracts what would otherwise be a long, monotonous facade. The fourth waiver, again, minor deviation, requires the facade to be composed to exhibit a vertically aligned fenestration pattern. The fenestration pattern is vertically oriented, but with varying widths and alignments. Many of the window openings include high-pressure laminate panels adjacent to the windows, which increase the apparent verticality of the building. The misalignment of the window openings is a fashionable architectural treatment, which is part of the larger strategy of using fenestration pattern to break up the facade and reduce the potential monotony of the long, undifferentiated mass. The next deviation, again minor, to be waived, requires the depth of a service bay to accommodate the total vehicle length so as not to interrupt the pedestrian circulation of the sidewalk. The overhead door for the dumpster will require the collection trucks to back across the sidewalk to access the dumpster, which will block the sidewalk on Savanna Street while loading. The sidewalk will only be blocked for a short period of time on refuse pickup days, and the site has been designed to utilize the parking garage curb cut in order to retain an existing tree. Of the three street frontages, Savanna Street functions as essentially a service alley and is the least prominent from a pedestrian circulation standpoint. This is where an access to the garage, dumpster, and bike room are located. Most of this block of Savanna Street already is devoted to service and vehicular access to the adjacent buildings as well. And the last deviation that was waived, again minor, requires first floor building facades to have between 40% and 75% window coverage along city and district streets, and between 30% and 60% window coverage along neighborhood streets. Monroe Avenue is classified as a city street. The Monroe Avenue facade is in compliance with this requirement. Howell Street is classified as a boulevard. The code sets no requirement for facades facing boulevards. Savanna Street is classified as a neighborhood street. The small portion of the facade that faces Savanna Street does not meet the transparency requirement. As stated above and previously, Savanna Street functions similarly to a service alley, providing access to the garage, dumpster, and bike room. Most of this block of Savanna Street already is devoted to service and vehicular access to the adjacent buildings as well. The lack of transparency along the short, approximately 40-foot section of the building is appropriate under these circumstances. So the next question that was posed, does the site plan take into account maximum usage of the building? The site plan review process recognizes that some developments and uses, even though generally suitable for location in a particular district, are, because of their design, materials, details, and textures, character, nature, size, complexity, or other probable impact, capable of adversely affecting the goals for which the zoning code is established, unless careful consideration has been given to critical design elements. Site plan review provides the opportunity to analyze the above to ensure that proposals are best suited for a specific site. The site plan review process does not account for guesses about how the proposed use of a building might be changed in the future. If a change of use were to be proposed after construction, the applicant would have to follow the procedure to establish that use. Most uses in fully enclosed buildings are allowed in the CCD district and do not require parking. There are other uses that are subject to restrictions under the zoning code's limited use category, while other uses are prohibited outright. Site plan review and the EAF did account for the maximum usage of the building, so full office and apartment occupancy, as presently proposed. Why isn't there a construction parking plan? Our office doesn't require a construction parking plan. It is the experience of our office that construction parking plans are normally provided to the property owner or project sponsor for site logistics. For example, a project on the University of Rochester campus, the contractor would provide the campus with a plan highlighting the construction parking area with an estimate of the amount of vehicles that would be on site at any given time. So what is the role of the Planning Commission? The role is described in detail in the first page of the staff report. The City Planning Commission has the authority to approve with conditions, or deny the site plan application based on the denial criteria set forth in the zoning code. This is the same basis that we use on our evaluation. Although the commission will be applying the same denial criteria that were applied by the manager in her decision, the commission's decision and findings must be based on the member's own review of the plans and documents submitted and testimony given, and shall not be confined to ratifying or rejecting the manager's decision document.
When do I get to respond to this?
Mr. Darcy, after I read all of the public comments, you'll have an opportunity to respond.
Serious issues.
So I never got a sense, this is Tom Worth, did the members of the commission finish asking their questions?
Yes, we did. I believe so, Tom.
Okay, just double checking.
I just have to go down to all of the comments that we received. Are you guys ready? Dave, are you ready for that portion?
Yes. I guess, well, maybe before that, Mr. Darcy, did you have a question that you wanted to ask before? Were you able to ask that? Or did you not get it?
No, I had concerns about what Jill said, and I disagree with that factually. There were some errors in there.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed what you were asking.
I'm saying there were errors in what Jill said, and I wondered when I get a chance to correct those from our viewpoint so the commission understands. So
Yeah, you will get a chance, Jack, you will get a chance to rebut at the end of the comments, just as the planning commission has always done.
Hey, I don't understand the procedure. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Anna.
All right, so these are the comments. So comments for this project were accepted until 5 p.m. Friday, June 5th. The comments received by May 29, 2020 were published with the staff report. Comments received after May 29, 2020 have been sent to the Planning Commission, posted on the website, and I'm going to read them into the record now. So I'll first start with ones that are in favor of the application to appeal. This is from the Wadsworth Square Neighborhood Association. The Wadsworth Square Neighborhood Association opposes the site plan for the Pastone project as presented to the Planning Commission. The site plan approval must be reversed based on New York State law and the Rochester City Zoning Code. Wadsworth Square is a historic neighborhood near the Strong Museum and includes this parcel. Our history dates back to before the Civil War. Our neighborhood includes many architecturally attractive old homes and vibrant but parking challenged businesses. Our association is very active and done a great deal to build and maintain our area. We asked the Planning Commission to promote new development that works cooperatively with our successful neighborhood. Help us. Developers and neighborhoods must work together. This site plan must be considered fairly based on the denial criteria regardless of who the applicant is. This site plan approval violates New York State law. This site plan approval was based upon incorrect declaration of environmental significance. The correct declaration would require an environmental impact statement from the applicant. This mistake must be corrected. According to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, if the proposed project may have at least one significant adverse impact, then a positive declaration must be issued and the applicant must prepare an environmental impact statement, EIS. The applicant did not prepare that required statement. 3 of the criteria included are a substantial change of use or intensity of use of land, including agricultural, open space, or recreational resources, or its capacity to support existing uses. The encouraging or attracting of a large number of people to place or places for more than a few days, compared to the number of people who would come to such place absent the action. 2 or more related actions undertaken, funded or approved by an agency, none of which has or would have a significant impact on the environment, but when considered cumulatively, would meet one or more or the criteria in this subdivision. Clearly, all 3 of the above apply, and therefore an incorrect declaration of environmental significance was made. The site plan approval is illegal. The site plan approval must be denied using the code site plan denial criteria. See Chapter 120-191-4G. The site plan meets the criteria for denial. The code specifies it should be denied if the proposed site plan unnecessarily and in specified particulars is injurious or detrimental to the use and enjoyment of surrounding property. The negative impact is unnecessary. The applicant could provide more underground parking and or reduce the size of the building or provide adequate and effective committed off-site parking. The very limited parking will significantly add to the parking problem in this already distressed area. See Chapter 120-191-4R. The code specifies it should be denied if in the CCD, the proposed site plan is contrary to or fails to meet the principles and objective of the Center City Master Plan as enumerated in the Zoning Code, Chapter 120-58. The applicant's site plan is contrary to the master plan principle and objective, create a series of identifiable and recognizable center city districts and neighborhoods that retain their unique history, thematic, functional, or design characteristics and are linked and related to each other. By creating unnecessary adverse parking conditions, it will negatively impact the adjoining neighborhood. This impact could lead to vacancies that would destroy the historic character of the neighborhood. An environmental impact study needs to be done. The applicant can mitigate this situation by altering the site plan to provide more underground parking, building size reduction, or effective and committed off-site parking. Waivers from the code were given as is specified stated in the site plan approval. Neither the manager of zoning nor the CPC have the power to grant waivers. Rather, variances should be required from the Zoning Board of Appeals. City zoning code was violated by making administrative adjustments that are not allowed. Chapter 120-191A4C1 states the manager can only approve an administrative adjustment of any numerical standard set forth in the chapter, not waivers. This particularly applies to the block coverage and lack of appropriate window coverage. These are particularly important and they are described in detail in application for the appeal. This site plan approval is full of rule bending to accommodate this applicant. The Planning Commission needs to correct that. C, parking. A parking and traffic study should be done and an environmental impact statement, EIS, required. This project has 56 apartments, 7,200 square feet of commercial space, and only 16 committed parking places. Even though parking is not required in the CCD, new projects should not be allowed if they severely negatively impact the environment of the surrounding area. The assumption with the CCD was that surrounding neighborhoods would not be jeopardized. The character of the area has dramatically changed since the inner loop infill process began, as has the parking situation. That is why a new parking and traffic impact study and a new environmental impact statement are needed. The CPC is in the position where it can help protect neighborhoods as well as considering new development. One, the Inner Loop East Transformation Project study states, the area of South Union between Monroe Avenue and East Avenue experiences an extremely high demand for parking at all times of day. This project will add to that. The overflow impacts residential side streets in Monroe Avenue. This city supported parking study explicitly states that as new infill projects are developed, the effects of parking supply and demand will need to be considered. This project is an example of that need. It goes on to say that for the purposes of forecasting, the study assumed that any infill would be 2-story mixed-use buildings with first floor commercial and the second floor residential. This building is 4 stories. The infill buildings are all multi-stories, creating more of a parking demand than forecast when the study was completed. This is why a new environmental impact study is needed. Furthermore, a city-sponsored Monroe Avenue parking study was done several years ago, showing that severe parking stress on the avenue and side streets at many times during the day. Since that study was completed, many new businesses have opened. Severe lack of parking can jeopardize business survival and residential neighborhood success. Beware of irreverent letters submitted on behalf of Pastone. Letters from Assemblyman Bronson, Congressman Morelli, and New York State Senator Robach were submitted. These letters are completely irrelevant. This hearing is about the site plan. Those letters were written and dated before the site plan was even prepared or submitted. They only refer to the concept of the project, housing, etc., that we also support. The hearing is not about the concept. It is about the building size, lot coverage, and environmental impact on the surrounding area, none of which is addressed in these letters. Also, Harry Bronson's letter refers to a 5,900 square foot of commercial space, far less than the 7,200 square foot in the plan. These letters are an intention diversion. We support the general concept too, but let's get a project that works and doesn't hurt the neighborhood. Community engagement. 1. Pastone has repeatedly refused to participate in parking resolution discussions. Mary Lupian from City Council invited Pastone to attend a discussion with us to try and reach a solution. Pastone refuses to attend. Developers and neighborhoods should work together. The Planning Commission can table this and make that discussion happen. Let's work together. In addition, we believe it is important for you to know that in December 2019, Pastone agreed to meet with the Monroe Avenue Merchants Association to discuss their project. A formal meeting dedicated to this discussion, and a good number of members and stakeholders turned out to meet with the Pastone representatives, but the Pastone people never showed up. Our president attended that meeting, no notice prior to or during the meeting that we're not coming. They just stood up the Monroe Avenue Merchants Association. Pastone is claiming to have made thorough and good faith efforts to engage with the community. The Monroe Avenue Merchants Association bears witness that it is definitely not entirely true. 3, Pastone repeatedly in their community engagement section refers to our reluctance to meet with them. This is inaccurate. I keep a detailed daily journal for my business. On September 17, 2019, according to my journal, Andrea Miller from Pastone and I had a detailed conversation about setting up a meeting. I told Andrea we had a lot of fall activities in the planning stage, but I would work her in. She said we are in no hurry, don't force it. We probably won't have financing until spring anyway. To accommodate Pastone, we set up a special evening meeting at their request. We normally meet weekends. We expected a large crowd due to strong neighborhood parking concern. We held the special December 10 meeting at the School Without Walls because there's often severe evening parking difficulties in the neighborhood. They agreed on the location. We had strong attendance and a huge outcry of opposition. People feel their businesses and residences are being jeopardized. Steve Dubnik at the Strong Museum has offered to participate in a parking plan. Pastone has agreed to nothing. We have sent numerous emails to Mayor Warren, City Attorney Tim Curtin, etc., showing our willingness to work cooperatively with Pastone. Tim Curtin has told me something is being worked on. We have offered to meet jointly. This matter should be adjourned until meetings are held with Pastone, the Strong Museum, the neighborhood, and Pastone. A new brewery is opening in our neighborhood with deficient parking also. Unless the City Planning Commission acts wisely, they could contribute to a disastrous situation. The Wodsworth Square Neighborhood Association is not opposed to the concept Pastone wants. However, a plan needs to be developed where the developer and neighborhood work together. The Planning Commission is in a position to help facilitate that plan. We see a possible solution using committed spaces in the Wadsworth Square parking lot, city-owned, and spaces Pastone or tenants would pay for in the Strong Museum garage. We suggest 20 in each location. The key word is committed, not maybe spaces. There are other possibilities. Please reverse the site plan approval or adjourn this matter until Pastone, the city, the neighborhood, and Strong Museum meet to develop a plan. Give us a chance, be a hero in this situation. Sincerely, Jack A. Darcy, President. Okay, moving right along. So our next one is from Jill Lipinski. I don't have an address for Jill, but here you go. As a longtime resident of the Wadsworth Square neighborhood, I am in favor of appealing the Pastone proposal as it refers to the parking plan. The congestion in our area is already terribly taxed, and the proposed plan by Pastone is inadequate for the needs any residents there would have. I request that you please require them to update their plan to accommodate their residents and help alleviate the already crowded parking issues of our neighborhood. I thank you in advance for your consideration of this matter. The next is Rita Lesnick of 160 Griffith Street. My name is Rita Lesnick. I live at 160 Griffith Street. I've lived or worked at this address for over 40 years, and throughout those years, parking for residents and businesses has been a challenge. In fact, I often share a spot on my property for a neighbor to park and have even had keys to my neighbor's cars to turn them to the other side of the street due to the middle of the day change required on our street. I'm writing to vigorously oppose the approval of the Pastone project and strongly ask your consideration to reverse the decision or require Pastone to secure 20 parking spaces in Strong Garage and an additional 20 spaces in the Wadsworth Square lot at the end of Marshall Street for established residents of the small challenged neighborhood. To approve the project without affording ample parking for the current residents is a great injustice to those of us who have struggled to keep this neighborhood vibrant and attractive to city dwellers. Please consider the very negative impact this approval will have on us. Thank you for your conscientious review of our concerns. The next is from Daniel McCabe of 61 Marshall Street. My name is Daniel McCabe and I live at 61 Marshall Street, which is approximately 500 feet from Pastone's proposed project. The Wadsworth Square community was the reason I chose to move to the city of Rochester. This is a community of caring, proactive people from diverse backgrounds and means that has succeeded in creating a supportive home for all of its people. Whether owners, renters, or homeless, we have succeeded in this endeavor to the extent that We now have 5 of the best restaurants in the city within half a block of the corner of Monroe Ave and Marshall Street. We welcome these types of businesses as we were excited to hear of the low-income housing being built. However, for a neighborhood or a city to grow responsibly is the task of healthy planning. The new businesses were told that they did not need to create parking for their customers, including 4 restaurants and a brewery with seating for 100, because the Wodsworth Square lot would be open for their clients. This is not the case, and the result is that Marshall and Griffith Streets, which are only 3 lanes wide from curb to curb, are packed along both sides every evening and night. Most of the houses are rentals, and there is no off-street parking for the tenants. The result is that two-way traffic is not possible and has encumbered emergency vehicles such as required for my upstairs neighbor, and what few driveways do exist are frequently blocked by cars. I have chosen to pay $100 a month extra to the only off-street parking spot and have been blocked in at least 12 times last summer/fall. We have already seen that this lowered the values of the properties. 61 Marshall is selling this week for 63% of the price it was listed for last summer. The reason behind this, according to the realtor for the new owner, was that he will need to lower the rents because of an inability of tenants to park even on the street. We are concerned that this situation will escalate dramatically once 56 new units and the customers of Jeeva workspace are added to the mix. There have been costless solutions for this problem proposed, and these have been presented. Most rely on the Wodsworth Square parking lot being open to our soon-to-be new neighbors and customers. Unfortunately, neither Pastor nor the City of Rochester officials to whom these have been presented have shown interest in discussing these no-burden solutions. I support the Neighborhood Association's appeal because the impact of on the neighborhood economically, physically, and for quality of life reasons has not been addressed. The on-street parking situation or lack thereof is already significantly lower property values. The new tenants in the 56 units at 91-121 Howell will be placed in the same position as we have been placed. 16 parking places will not suffice for those 56 units and 7,200 square feet of commercial space. I request that the Planning Commission reverse the manager of zoning's decision, or in the alternative, condition the site plan approval on the presentation of a contract for 20 parking spaces in the Strong Museum Garage and 20 spaces in the Wadsworth Square parking lot. The contract is to be renewed annually before a certificate of occupancy is issued. Next, we have Emily Miller at 75 Howell Street. I'm writing to express my concerns over the lack of parking for the proposed Pastone development at the corner of Howell and Monroe Ave. I've had my business, Rochester's first dog daycare, located at 75 Howell Street for 20 years. I've expanded to the building next door and now commonly have around 80 dogs per day visiting, as well as obedience classes running Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. When the Inner Loop project was announced, I was very excited for our little area of Upper Monroe. The final outcome has been wonderful for our small street. The additional parking has been hugely helpful in allowing for quick drop-offs and pickups. However, during Party in the Park and Jazz Fest for our parking fills up rapidly, making it more difficult for my clientele to safely pick up their dogs. Often they just stop in the street as there is no parking available. I attended the Pastone meeting for the Neighborhood Association and feel the project is wonderful and a huge boon to our area. However, the minimal parking is hugely concerning. The Jeeva representative mentioned classes running from 10 to 10 most days. With our parking right across the street, it's easy to see Jeeva clientele parking on our area of Howell. Not only is it the shortest route, but it's free. I have major concerns about a logjam happening on our street if the parking is taken up. The parking on Howell is also used by Kim Dow Jewelry and patrons of Rocco and the Owl House. We will all feel the pressure if the Pastone development residents or clientele spill into the meager parking we have. The Wadsworth Square neighborhood is already struggling with parking issues as it is, and this new development will only add to parking stressed area. I encourage the project developers to add more parking. A neighborhood survives on the success of all who encompass it. So next we have Mama. So they submitted a longer one, which is included in the staff report. I'm going to read the condensed one that will fit within the time they're allotted during this public hearing. We oppose the Passstone site plan as presented and recommended a reversal of the approval. We support
Anna,
the
could I just interrupt? Who was this? I didn't catch
Oh,
who you said it was.
yeah, my bad. I referred to them by their acronym. So this is the Monroe Avenue Merchants Association, and
Oh, okay.
they're located at 369 Pearl Street. And because we're live streaming on YouTube, I wanted to do a shout out to my mom. Okay. So we oppose the Passstone site plan as presented and recommend a reversal of the approval. We support the appeal that was submitted by Jack Darcy. 1, the parking situation on Monroe Avenue and the neighboring streets is already severely stressed. This project, as proposed, threatens business survival and will also likely result in residential vacancies. We have watched with growing alarm as the city's approval process has failed at every step to understand the magnitude of the negative impact the site plan will have on this area. An environmental impact statement and the accompanying study should be done as required by New York state law when there may be a significant environmental impact. There are multiple precedents in comparable situations which we can cite. Reverse the approval or table it until the EIS is done and reviewed. It is also clear that there are city zoning code violations. Waivers are not permitted and variances are needed for block coverage and transparency. Variances need to be obtained before the approval of the site plan. This site plan is simply unworkable. Anyone who understands the innate parking challenges of Monroe Avenue and its neighborhoods, as well as we do, would tell you so. 16 scant spots of commercial parking for 56 apartments and all of the clientele of an active Jeeva enterprise. The majority of the parking demand will land on the streets and immediately overwhelm an already deficient parking capacity. Dubious assurances of other parking to be had are just that. Prove it. This property is in the CCD zone, which technically does not require parking. However, it is owned by the city, and if the city feels the project will hurt the area, it does not need to sell it to this party at all, or unless there are major changes to mitigate the negative impact. From what we know, Passstone has entirely failed to take into consideration any of the urgent concerns of the existing area businesses and neighborhoods. Certainly, they completely blew off without a word at the meeting they had set up with us, where we sat waiting with a good number of people and readiness for a substantive discussion. At MAMA, one of the main things we do is assess the issues around such circumstances as are involved here. We have wisdom from the front lines. We support development, and again, this particular concept, but that development needs to be done right. First, do no harm to existing business areas and neighborhoods. And this is from Moyer Lemperly, the president. Next, we have Jane Vestling from 375 Broadway. I'm opposed to the Passstone plan at 95-121 Howell Street, aka 150 Monroe Ave, and I am in support of our appeal to the City Manager of Zoning's approval of this plan. I am a resident of Wodsworth Square neighborhood and have lived here since 2005. It is a lovely area. It is a mix of residential and business, and we have a highly active neighborhood association. We are supportive of our neighbors in need, and we are generous to others outside our neighborhood. We welcome new development, ideas, diversity, and progress that will enhance our community and be a benefit to those that live here. I live in the Wadsworth Square townhouses on Broadway. We already have overcrowded street parking. We constantly have neighbors that park in our private parking spaces behind the townhouses, which of course are for the townhouse owners and our guests. It is a constant battle now to keep them from parking on our private property, and I only see the situation getting worse with this project, in addition to a new townhouse project to be built on Broadway and the new brewery opening. I do not live across the street from 150 Monroe Avenue, but it will affect the whole neighborhood with the domino effect as the excess drivers on Monroe Ave look for parking spaces on side streets. Parking issues are a deterrent to people coming to the city to live, shop, dine, and for entertainment. If you want to draw people in from the suburbs or other towns, then parking needs to be easy and user-friendly or they will go elsewhere. I have seen the plans for 150 Monroe Ave and heard from Passstone at a neighborhood meeting, and there are many great appealing qualities to this project. However, there is a huge problem with just 16 parking spaces for the proposed project, and they have failed to come up with any options. I understand that the city's approval of Passstone project violates New York state law and our city zoning code. I am urging the Planning Commission to reject Pastone's current project until they come up with a solution to the lack of necessary parking spaces. Again, I am opposed to the Pastone plan at 95 121 Howell Street, aka 150 Monroe Ave. I support our appeal to the City of Manager zoning approval of this plan. Please seriously consider our appeal. Next, we have Peter Kim Friedel at 668 Monroe Avenue. We have operated our retail store on Monroe Avenue since 1983, 37 years. We speak to you out of direct and truly extensive experience. We are, in fact, experts in the on-the-ground reality of parking on Monroe Avenue. We are aghast at how irresponsible the proposed parking plan for this project is. With only 16 on-site parking spaces underground for 56 apartments and an entire floor's worth of Jeeva clients who will be forced to find street parking along the overflow of tenant vehicles. Inadequate parking is a serious problem up and down Monroe Ave. The single most telling data point in the Monroe Ave Parking and Mobility Study report released in January 2017 is that over 40% of customer respondents stated that when they had come to the area to patronize a business and failed to find a parking spot, they just left. This is a horrifying statistic for an Avenue business owner to contemplate, and the area of Monroe in question is certainly no exception to this chronic dearth of parking, as we can testify as follows. Last year, our long-term lease was nearing its end, and reviewing options, we decided to consider a location a moment's walk from 150 Monroe Ave, one we had looked at briefly 10 years previously. As a destination business, we draw substantial retail traffic from all over the greater Rochester area and even beyond. Thus, parking availability was #1 on the evaluation list. It is important, by the way, to understand that in the age of malls and now online shopping, it is essential for commercial corridor businesses in Rochester to draw customers from a wide area, which means lots of cars to be parked. Only certain kinds of businesses can survive anymore as neighborhood operations that a high proportion of customers walk to. Reconnoitering the parking situation in the area, it didn't take long to determine that it was hopeless as a realistic prospect for us. The area was already more parking challenged than anywhere else on Monroe Ave, except maybe where the library and the YMCA sit next to each other besides the 490 ramp. Side street parking is essential on Monroe to handle the inevitable overflow, and there was far too little here for the needs of the busy retail store. If we, with our level of business understanding and our experience coping with problematic avenue parking, came to this conclusion, you can be sure that a plan depending on the constant availability of copious free street parking for 56 apartments and a thriving Jeeva enterprise is a bad plan. And assuming the development of the inner loop parcels will provide a substantial economic boon, the proverbial rising tide will lift business in this adjacent area, which will of course bring even more parking demand. We beg the Planning Commission to use its authority to derail this harmful juggernaut, and we thank you for your attention. Next, we have Rodney Mcdonald. I don't have an address for Rodney. My name is Rodney Mcdonald, owner of Rem Art Gallery on Monroe Ave. I do not support Pastone's project simply because there is not sufficient parking for this complex. 16 spaces for 56 units is not sufficient. Allowing it will greatly impact my business. I hope the Planning Commission reverses the manager of zoning's decision. Customers do not want to look for parking blocks away from where they want to shop. I will lose business. It is for this reason that I support the neighborhood association's opposition to this project. Thank you. Next, I have Mark Coppolo of 165 Monroe Ave. My concerns are consistent with those businesses around me. Parking is an issue in all cities. New developments, especially those with housing, should take responsibility for providing ample parking and therefore not contributing to any city's difficult quandaries. Thanks. Next, I have John Lumbach. Mr. Watson, the proposed Jeeva project appears at first glance to be a highly desirable proposal to meet many of the 2034's plan's goals. Adding low-income housing, housing for special needs groups, encouraging the arts and culture, and renewing an area of reclaimed land from a former expressway. Some novel uses are proposed for the first floor retail space areas that might be connected to arts-related educational classes. It is a modern-looking building which would fit well with the Museum of Play buildings across the street. This proposal maximizes the availability of land area, yet still needs several variances for approval. The problem is the probable adverse impact for the Wodsworth Square neighborhood in which it is to be located. The area of Monroe Avenue and the adjacent residential side streets historically have been parking challenged. The resurgence of small businesses in this area over the past 10 years is likely to be reversed if parking is made less available because of the lack of sufficient parking for patrons and residents for the Jeeva project. It is clear that this problem was not considered during the site plan review process or addressed by the Jeeva project developer when asked by the neighborhood to remedy the situation afterwards. I request that the Planning Commission overturn the manager of zoning's decision and rule in favor of the applicant to require further hearings and review until such time as all community concerns are remedied. And lastly, we have a petition that was submitted. It's 3 pages in total. We have 11 signatures on the first page. Now we're up to 22, and here we are on the last page. You can see the page is full. So I'm going to move right along into the comments that we received that were in opposition of the application. So these are ones to upheld the manager's decision. This is from Jason Haremza of 34 Wilcox Street. I strongly urge the commission to uphold the manager of zoning's decision regarding the site plan approval for 150 Monroe Ave. The proposed project is an elegantly designed urban and urbane solution to a unique site created by the Interloop East Transformation Project. One of the primary goals of the Interloop Transformation Project was to correct past mistakes that attempted to redesign the city of Rochester around the desires of cars and motorists rather than around the desires of people. The proposed building goes a long way to repairing those past mistakes in this area of the city, which I frequent almost always on foot. The building meets the spirit and intent of the CCD zoning district in the following ways. The placement of the building close to the Monroe and Howell Street sidewalk defines the public space of the streets. This is particularly important as this intersection is a gateway to the city for motorists arriving from I-490. A dense urban cityscape at this intersection signals to drivers to slow down. You are leaving the expressway and entering a city. The designer's careful attention to placement of the building entrances and transparency in an area where many desire traditional urban retail uses, but the market for such is uncertain at best. I've worked with Mr. Darcy in the past, both with the Monroe Village Task Force before I worked for the city, as well as during my tenure in the zoning office. I respect the stewardship he has shown for the neighborhood, and our encounters have always been cordial. However, I said to him personally on more than one occasion that philosophically we have very different views on how best to build and rebuild a city. I'm greatly disappointed that Mr. Darcy, and by extension the Wadsworth Square Neighborhood Association and Monroe Avenue Merchants Association, continues to focus on the accommodation of cars and parking over a more human-scaled way to build our city. I hope the commission looks to the future of Rochester when cars will not dominate our city as much as they do today, and upholds the manager of zoning site plan review decision on this very thoughtfully designed project. Thank you for consideration of these comments and the thoughtful review of this project. Next, we have a comment from Linda Maggie at 45.5 Marshall Street. I'm writing to urge you to uphold the manager of zoning site plan approval for the proposed new building at 95-121 Howell Street, aka 150 Monroe Ave. As a 30+ year resident of the Wadsworth Square neighborhood and a member of the Wadsworth Square Neighborhood Association, I want to make it clear that in this instance, the association does not speak for me. I welcome the addition of new life to our neighborhood that will come as a result of additional apartments and especially the addition of Jeeva's new practice, classrooms, and workshop space. This can only result in increased foot traffic for neighborhood businesses and much needed new vibrancy for the first 2 blocks of Monroe Ave. The applicants assert that the site plan approval should be revoked because of an incorrect declaration of environmental significance, and the project violates the city zoning code. Neither of these assertions are valid. The information given by the zoning office in attachment C, the site plan review referral application, provides a good summary. I agree with their conclusions. There have been 2 environmental reviews of this site, seeker, one for the entire Interloop Transformation Project and one for the specific building. Both correctly conclude that there is little or no adverse environmental impact. The applicant states that there will be substantial change of use or intensity of use. Yes, there is a change of use from highway to apartment building. I don't think this is an increased intensity of use. If you read their attachment and follow their logic, virtually every new building on a vacant lot should be issued a positive declaration. This is not agricultural open space for recreational land. It is vacant land in the center of a city. The city's RFP for the parcel specifically required that a new building should be developed. Also, do not forget that the original Inner Loop project destroyed an entire neighborhood, including numerous multi-story buildings along Monroe Ave. This project will not even approach the intensity of what was destroyed. This project is in full compliance with the zoning code except for a few minor deviations from the CCD design criteria. The code gives the manager of zoning the authority to waive any of the design criteria through the site plan review process. This is precisely what has been done. Waivers of the design criteria have been granted for virtually every new downtown building since the current code was adopted. There are no minimum parking requirements within the CCD, and there have been none in downtown since 1975. There is a great deal of literature on the damage caused to cities by parking requirements, and cities such as Buffalo, Hartford, Connecticut, Somerville, Massachusetts, and others are moving to drop them altogether citywide. This is also a recommendation of the 2034 comp plan. The applicant claims the project meets the criteria for the site plan denial because it doesn't have enough parking, which it is claimed, could lead to vacancies that would destroy the historic character of the neighborhood. The assertion that vacancies could result is nothing more than speculation, unsupported by facts. Remember the famous Yogi Berra quote, "Nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded." There are a number of locations in the city and suburbs with high commercial vacancy rates and ample parking. The success and vibrancy of commercial streets is much more complex than simply the amount of available parking. Even if some vacancies occurs, which could very well happen due to COVID-19, this would have no effect on the historic character of the neighborhood. Vacancies and new businesses replacing old businesses are part of the normal life of every commercial street. As long as a business provides a product or service that people want, it will survive. The addition of more people within walking distance will only make it better. If parking truly becomes a problem, there are many ways to manage it. It should be remembered that the 78-space Wadsworth Square parking lot on Marshall Street was developed in the 1980s to address the parking deficit in our neighborhood where many buildings have no parking. Any resident in our neighborhood can park there. It never got much use, which certainly does not support the claim that our neighborhood is parking stressed, since the residents didn't use it. The city began leasing spaces for downtown workers. It can be used by anyone when the gates are up in the evenings and on weekends. It could be used by those from the new building. Cities around the world and around the U.S. are trying to move beyond a focus on the automobile as the principal means of transportation. Improved transit, micromobility, bike share, scooter share, etc., and the reclaiming of street space from cars for people are all part of these efforts. So is the de-emphasis on parking. More parking only encourages more driving. Our zoning code and our comprehensive plan are responding to these trends as part of our need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to reorient our city around the people rather than vehicles. Please do not override the code. Please uphold the site plan approval. Next, we have Dirk Schneider of 114 South Union Street. This letter is written to provide our support for this project, and we look forward to the City Planning Commission to uphold the thorough review and approval provided by the manager of zoning. CGS Architects is proud to be a part of the Parcel 7 Passstone project. Our firm has experience with many projects within the city of Rochester, and especially with the Inner Loop infill. We are currently working on all the projects that encompass the strong neighborhood of play. Parcel 6, 54-56 South Union renovation, Rock Brewing, and FLX. And 114 South Union renovation, our new office location. Within the Center City District, the firm has also completed many additional projects, such as the Gibb Street neighborhood, Eastman Theater renovation and addition, and Eastman Place, to list a few. The proposed Parcel 7 project is consistent with the vision of the City of Rochester's Inner Loop East Transformation Project. The project design supports the city's desire to create a gateway building in an urban context with its massing, siting, and inclusion of materials replicating those found in the immediate neighborhood. One of our goals is to create a calm counterpart to our designs for the Strong Museum of Play's Butterfly Pavilion 2006 and its new parking structure 2020. While creating a memorable and strong in its identity gateway building as desired in the RFP. Regarding concerns for parking, the project for Parcel 7 as proposed and approved exceeds the requirements for this of the CDC parking requirement. Furthermore, it is rare to have a commercial tenant identified this early in the process, but Passstone found a great community partner in Jeeva Theater Center. Their mission and programming will undoubtedly have a positive impact on the surrounding neighborhood and will be a highly distinctive addition to that stretch of Monroe Ave. Please contact me should you have any questions. Next, we have Matt Tomlinson of 39 Cascade Drive. Marathon Engineering is proud to be a part of the Parcel 7 Passstone project. Our firm has extensive experience with a number of mixed-use projects in the city of Rochester, including several within the Center City District. Our partnership with Passstone Development Corporation includes several successful projects, including the recently completed Eastman Reserve on Dewey Avenue and Eastman Avenue. This letter is written to express our strong support for this project. The proposed Parcel 7 project is consistent with the vision of City of Rochester's Interloop East Transformation Project, which included the stated goals of encouraging sustainable economic growth and creating a more livable downtown. The developable land surrounding the loop will be transformed into a mixed-use community that would provide Rochesterians and visitors with places to work, live, and play. The partnership of Passstone and Jeeva Theater Center for this project fully meets the stated goals of the city in creating this development opportunity. This project progressed through the typical City of Rochester planning and zoning review and approval process, receiving site plan approval on 3/20/20. Residents were engaged throughout the process via neighborhood meetings and direct correspondence. Our office and the development team worked closely with city staff, answering questions and providing all required documentation to support the approval process. This included a close look at seeker, parking access, serviceability of the building, as well as other factors required for a comprehensive site plan review and approval as required by the city code. The Parcel 7 Passstone project creates an exciting entry point to the Western Monroe Ave gateway to Center City, promotes a pedestrian, mass transit, and bicycle focus for residents, and fulfills the goals of the Interloop Transformation Project. We look forward to the City Planning Commission endorsing the thorough review and approval performed by the Manager of Zoning and her staff and confirming the granting of the site plan approval. Next, we have Alex Castro of 400 East Ave. Passstone was founded in 1969 to address the critical needs of migrant and seasonal farm workers and their families. Passstone has grown from a small group of farm worker advocates in the upstate New York to a multi-state company providing services across New York, Vermont, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Virginia, and Puerto Rico. Since the mid-1980s, Passstone has developed, preserved, and acquired over 5,800 multifamily and single residential units throughout our operational footprint. This success continues today as Passstone proceeds first as a good neighbor and works in good faith with neighborhoods and community leaders to reach a common vision. Municipalities and faith-based communities reach out in partnership to Passstone to develop housing for the most vulnerable amongst us. Passstone's development of Parcel 7 aligns with the Passstone's mission to build family and individual self-sufficiency in urban and rural communities. It replicates our success at Wedge Point Apartments, 390 South Ave, Alexander Common Apartments, 170 Alexander Street, and most recently, the Eastman Reserve Apartments, 303 Eastman Ave. Parcel 7 will be a mixed-use, mixed-income, multifamily development situated in the historic Wodsworth Square neighborhood within the City of Rochester's Center City District. The CCD is fundamental to the City of Rochester's strategic downtown revitalization plan. Site 7 is aligned with the city's proclaimed ideal of highest and best use for the Center City District. The development is also aligned with the city's 2034 comp plan by developing new housing that addresses the affordable housing demand, capitalizes on the historical and cultural institutions of the Wodsworth Square neighborhood, and offers housing options that address the needs of diverse households. It is significant to note that the units will be affordable to households at various income ranges, creating greater levels of inclusiveness. Passstone is proud to be an active player in Rochester's downtown renaissance by developing affordable and workforce housing for individuals and families in close proximity to multimodal transportation centers that contribute to the development of vibrant, mixed-use, high-density neighborhoods. We asked the Planning Commission to support the Manager of Zoning's initial determination and allow our development to proceed. Next is Adrian Martin of Westminster Road. Hello. A friend shared on Facebook that there is some sort of review process on the 95 Howell Street project, and I would like to provide some input. When I first saw renderings of this planned building, I got very excited. I commute to work, at least pre-virus, right down Monroe to downtown on my bike every day. This project has excited me for a few reasons. One, the building looks attractive and will be much nicer to bike past compared to a vacant lot. Two, More residents downtown and on Monroe Ave means more people supporting businesses downtown and on Monroe Ave. Recently, we lost our hardware store, which means a trek out to Mayors instead of an easy walk down the street for me. 3, the project as planned does not include an abundance of parking, meaning it will hopefully increase the constituency for safer bicycle infrastructure on Monroe Ave and better public transit, and looks like it won't be fronted by a big parking lot or have a giant parking garage. It frequently feels that half of downtown is either parking lots or parking garages. 4, it's an easy location for me to bring my kids to for the classes that Jeeva plans on offering there. I hope this project goes forward as planned. Okay, next we have Brett Garwood at 700 Clinton Square. Home Leasing is very proud to be part of the development team as general contractor for a Passstone project to be located at Parcel 7 of the Inner Loop. As a developer, Home Leasing has successfully completed 3 projects along Charlotte Street, including Charlotte Square at East End, Charlotte Townhomes, and Charlotte on the Loop, which sits on Parcel 1 of the Inner Loop Transformation Project. We are also under construction with Union Square, which is on Parcel 3. All of these projects were made possible due to the planning and infrastructure investments associated with the Inner Loop Transformation Project. These projects were approved and proceeded because they were consistent with and further the vision for this area of the city as expressed by the planning, work, and code associated with the Center City District. The Inner Loop Transformation Project planning and investment, as well as the new City of Rochester Comprehensive Plan. We are very excited about the proposed project for Parcel 7 because it continues to implement the vision that has long been desired for the Inner Loop. Regarding concerns for parking, the project for Parcel 7 as proposed and approved by the managers of zoning is totally consistent with the planning, the development standards, and the zoning code that has been consistently encouraged for this area. The proposal is also consistent with the approach for the approval of our projects on Parcel 1 and Parcel 3. For Parcel 1 of the Inner Loop, Home Leasing developed 50 units with 17 spaces on site. For Parcel 3, we are developing 72 units with 21 parking spaces on site. These 2 projects are happening in the context of the East End, where on-street parking demand is high during certain times of the week or during events. Home Leasing has also heard concerns about the logistics during the construction of the building at Parcel 7. Given our previous work at Charlotte Street, Parcel 1 and Parcel 3, we are very experienced in developing plans to construct buildings in this context. We will continue to utilize our strategies that include the use of off-street parking for contractors during construction. We encourage the board to support the determination by the manager of zoning and allow the project to proceed. Please let me know if you have any questions. Next, we have Joseph Morelli, 100 State Street. I write in support of the Passstone Development Corporation's proposal to purchase Site 7, located at 150 Monroe Ave from the City of Rochester, and in turn develop over 50 units of affordable housing with an additional 5,900 square feet of non-residential commercial space. This proposal will help the newest section of our city expand the mixed-use, mixed-income ideal that is critical to downtown's development. In addition to providing much-needed affordable housing options, which will grow the city's tax base, the commercial space will provide opportunities for small businesses and nonprofits to serve our community and thereby create jobs in the city of Rochester. Time and again, Passstone has proven its ability to close on complex financing that has resulted in outstanding housing opportunities in areas of need. Passstone has been a leader in providing a broad range of quality, affordable housing, and based on their previous success, I'm confident that they will provide an excellent addition to the growing vibrancy of the Rochester Center City District. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me directly. Next, we have Harry Bronson. I'm pleased to express my support for Passstone Development Corporation's proposed Site 7 development. The proposed mixed-use building will create 50+ units of affordable rental housing, serving families with incomes up to 60% of the area median income, as well as creating space for businesses to engage and serve our vibrant community in Center City. This proposed project is an exciting prospect for the City of Rochester. It provides highly necessary affordable housing on land serviced by existing infrastructure and within a bustling and lively section of the city. It is also located directly along the RTS bus line, near many entry-level employment opportunities, the Strong Museum of Play, small retail establishments, local restaurants, and city recreation sites. Housing such as this is vital to the local economy. These types of developments increase the local tax revenue vastly without placing a burden on taxpayers. They stop economic spillage by providing the local workforce with a local housing choice and help retain jobs of the current retailers. In addition, this project will meet Enterprise Green Communities building criteria that includes high efficiency Energy Star furnaces, Energy Star appliances, and light fixtures, advanced framing techniques, water conserving fixtures, among others. These energy conserving measures are equally important to Passstone, the City of Rochester, New York State, and future residents of this project. Again, I'm happy to endorse this important project, and sincerely optimistic that the City of Rochester select Passstone to develop this highly visible and important site along the Inner Loop East redevelopment. And then lastly, we have Joseph Robach at 2300 West Ridge Road. I am pleased to express my enthusiastic support for Passstone Development Corporation's proposed Site 7 development. The proposed mixed-use building will create 50-plus units of affordable rental housing serving families with incomes up to 60% of the area median income, as well as creating space for businesses to engage and serve our vibrant community and center city. This proposed project is an exciting prospect for the City of Rochester. It provides highly necessary affordable housing on land serviced by infrastructure within a bustling and lively section of the city. It is also located directly along the RTS bus line, near many entry-level employment opportunities, the strong museum of play, small retail establishments, local restaurants, and city recreation sites. Housing such as this is vital to the local economy. These types of developments increase the local tax revenue vastly without placing a burden on taxpayers. They stop economic spillage by providing local workforce with a local housing choice and help retain jobs of current retailers. In addition, this project will meet Enterprise Green Communities building criteria that includes high efficiency Energy Star furnaces, Energy Star appliances and light fixtures, advanced framing techniques, water conserving fixtures, among others. These energy conserving measures are equally important to the Passstone, the City of Rochester, New York State, and future residents of this project. Again, I'm happy to endorse this important project and sincerely optimistic that the City of Rochester select Passstone to develop this highly visible and important site along the Inner Loop East redevelopment. Should you need additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Okay, that's all for me.
Okay, now we have, Chuck can have 5 minutes, you said, to rebut.
Okay, I'll talk fast. First, again, the letters from Terry Bronson, Morale, and Robach do not address the site plan. They just talk positively about Jeeva and Passstone, and we all agree. They're great companies. We love them, but we need a site plan that works. When Jill addressed the environmental study, it was a short form environmental assessment form rather than the full environmental impact statement that would be required, because all of these things, including parking, can have a severe impact on the environment of the surrounding area. And it said, all it needs to be is may have an impact, and they certainly may, but it should have been done. Next thing, everybody wants to work together on this. Passstone can work with us, the city wants to work with us, it's a strong museum's willing to work with us. Why not table this thing and come to an agreement? If you don't table it, Passstone will do what they've been doing, and they'll kind of thumb their nose at us and say, we don't need you, we've got approval, we'll just go ahead and do what we want to do. And when I had initial conversations with Passstone, they said, we know there's going to be a parking problem, but that's not our problem. All right? The other thing is that Jill, in her response, cited the Washington Street garage. That's 1,500 feet from this site. According to the National Highway Study Board, if anything's more than 500 feet away, it's not effective parking alternative. This is almost three times too far from this site to be effective. Where are the Jeeva people going to park? They're not going to park in that garage, especially in the winter. They're going to park right in the neighborhood because it's free and it's easy. Waivers are not permitted. If you notice, there were like 6 waivers in Bill's report. Also, administrative adjustments are not permitted if they go over 10%. Now, she cites this fact that they can have 1 large building instead of 4 small ones. I say this, what about 1 smaller large building requiring less parking and providing maybe some parking within the building, more than what they have? There are solutions. Let's work together and get these solutions. One other thing about the Washington Square Garage, she cited that the Strong Museum is willing to lease spaces. We've talked to Steve, and he's willing to give them a reduced rate if they'll negotiate. Let's negotiate something. Let's settle something. If you pay his rate, which Jill referred to, that's $5 a day times 30 days, $150 a month to park it. Who in the heck, especially in an affordable housing project, is going to pay $150 a month for parking? Nobody. It's going to end up in our neighborhood. And again, the mayor wants to work with us. The city council, through Mary Lupian, wants to work with us. Table this thing. Let's get this thing done where everybody wins. Thank you. I have 30 seconds more. They cite that there were several residents, and I feel the same report was kind of prejudiced on. There were more than several. There were 20 letters and petitions. To me, that's more than several people expressed concern about past stuff.
All right, thank you, Mr. Darcy.
No, let me just ask the board, because the applicant's time could be extended if you have questions for him. Do you have any questions for Jack Darcy, the board members?
No.
Okay.
Nope, I don't believe so, Tom.
All right.
All right, that being said, Anna, anything else that we need to do other than close this case?
Decide if you want to take a 10-minute break before the deliberations.
I make an executive decision that we take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
So we'll meet back in 10 minutes from now. All right, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.